Welcome back. You're watching On Point. Still with us, NGCP spokesperson, Attorney Cynthia Alabanza. Before I leave that topic on the concession fee, Congressman Dan Fernandez was saying yesterday, talo nga yung gobyerno dahil in 2009 it was 43 pesos to a dollar. Ngayon, nasa almost 60 pesos na po. When it should have been maximum present, ito yung ginamit niyang word, maximum present value government. Could there be any violations here? Kasi dapat maybe under the EPIRA Law, kailangan maximum present value to government.
You know, actually, when I heard him use the term, I'm thinking that's not what present value means. It's not, it's actually backwards. You try to value it with inflation, forward-looking, and see how much that's worth in today's pesos or dollars. So that was the computation that I assume government undertook under PSALM when they determined that these terms were most advantageous to them. So again, I can only hazard a guess as to why.
Weren't you around during that time? Weren't you part of PSALM that time?
No.
Where were you?
I was with the Office of the Government Corporate Counsel.
Okay. All right. So this is the third one, taxes. So that could be very controversial because apparently NGCP only pays 3% tax compared to possibly other companies that pay what? Corporate income tax?
At 20+%.
Yeah. Parang ang swerte naman ng NGCP.
It sounds like it's a big, a big discount. But honestly, ordinary corporations pay 20+% on net income. We pay 3% on gross. And because we are revenue capped, and the revenue is determined by the ERC. We don't even determine how much we collect. We're revenue cap, meaning ERC determines the maximum amount of money we can collect from the consumers. Walang tago, kumbaga walang alpas. The government knows exactly how much is going into collections, gross collections. So the tax base here is much bigger. So it's not, you can't compare it directly to income tax because income tax, the tax base is much smaller because it's net income, less all the expenses. Sa amin, wala. Kung ano yung revenue mo, yun na yun.
Gross eh. Would it have been better? I mean, is this something that you could have done some sort of math wherein NGCP would be more profitable if it only paid 3% of gross rather than as compared to 20% of net?
Again, this was the computation that not PSALM but Congress made when it passed the bill. Our franchise is Republic Act 9511, so the 3% is there. And you have to assume that they did their homework, they made those computations and deemed that this was advantageous to government at the time.
Let's underscore that. Kongreso ang nagpatupad nitong 3%.
Yes.
Gross income tax, tax on the NGCP. Hindi po sinabi ng NGCP na 3% lang ang, baka naman pwedeng 3% lang bayaran namin, dami naming gastos dito. Okay. So again, it was a sweet deal.
Yes. You could say it was a sweet deal, but again, it isn't without risks as well. Yeah. Because then, yun nga, it's supposed to be in lieu of all taxes and fees, but in actuality, we come across a lot of resistance on the ground. So we end up paying many of these taxes and fees anyway, but of course under protest to preserve our legal right. But we end up paying a lot of them anyway.
What are these? Can you cite examples? Right of way?
Business taxes, real property taxes. Even though we have a Supreme Court ruling in our favor upholding the clear wording of the law, our franchise here, to buy peace, sometimes we just pay it under protest.
Okay. There was an editorial that I read, I think it was maybe a year ago, wherein it showed, it basically said that it was really a sweet deal for the NGCP. Not that it was blaming the NGCP for that, but, basically it happened, 2009, so 15 years ago. But at the end, at that part of the editorial said that you make so much money. Was it 200 billion for the years, I don't know, 20, let's say 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, ganon. Is that true?
Are we profitable? Yes, we are. Why? Not because we're making more than we should. Like I said, we're revenue capped, meaning it is the government through the ERC or regulators who determine how much we can charge. They determine how much we can spend. They can determine what we can spend. So we make the money out of efficiencies. As with all the other assets, energy assets that government sold off, just a little tweak here, where the efficiencies of a private businessman come in, then you see talaga how improved. Because we've kept our expenses also, it's very prudent and almost flat, our operating expenses. So just to underscore how efficient it's become.
Attorney, it seems like basically what you're saying is with the ERC there, it's almost like binibigyan po kayo ng pera. Sinasabing, ito lang ang pwede mong gastos, ito lang pwede mong i-charge,
Yes.
ito lang ang pwede mong gastusin,
Yes.
etc. Kung ano man ang profit doon, swerte nyo na lang. Parang ganun
Kasama
ba
na
yun?
rin dyan, they dictate even the rate of profit. Like an ordinary company, you have a product or a service, you look at how much it'll cost, and then you determine your own markup. And the only limit to that is the appetite of the public, whether they want to pay for that price. With us, it's not. ERC determines everything, what we build, what we spend, how much we can do this. Even our right-of-way is subject to a prudency review.
I see.
So
By the ERC?
Yes.
I see. Okay. But so with so much money, I don't know if you're going to correct me there, of profit by NGCP, why are there delayed projects? It's almost as if, or I'll just make it very simple. There are delayed projects. I read 34 out of 37. You're already fined by the ERC of 15 million pesos or 14.8 million pesos. And the other one is that parang palagi may problema NGCP pag may brownout or blackout. Siguro address those two issues.
First of all, NGCP is the delivery system. So if you're going to look back at the data, you will see that the vast majority of the power outages over the last several years are generation related. Yung mga tinatawag nating unplanned generation outages. Meaning, there's a plan, there's a schedule, and then biglaan siyang tumirik. And it happens.
Trip, ganon.
Yeah, it happens really. Any piece of machinery will trip unexpectedly, even though you maintain it. So the vast majority of all the power interruptions that happened because of generation tripping. There are also transmission-related outages, but
What's the percentage of the transmission?
less than 10%, single digits. I think 3%.
Okay.
So vast majority.
So ibig
talaga.
sabihin nun, doon sa mga nangyayaring brownout, 3% of that ay
Transmission-related.
kasalanan ng NGCP.
Yes.
Siguro, let's make it very clear.
It happens. Like, things happen like, for example, pag bagyo, may lilipad na punong kahoy.
Yeah.
Sometimes, honestly, animal intrusion. Snakes would climb up.
Yeah.
Sometimes a giant flying fox, the one that's big as a human being, sasabit siya doon. But, yun nga, you have to look at the ability of the company to bring it back immediately. So, we're able to do that naman.
Yeah.
But if it keeps going on, then it's no longer an issue of the delivery system, but of supply. Kasi kami, pag nasira yung delivery system, bilis ayusin yan. Oras lang binibilang. Hahanapin lang namin kung saan nasira.
Nagkaroon ng
And then mabilis ayusin yan. In fact, even if a tower falls down, we don't need to rebuild it. We have ERS, emergency restoration systems, that allow us to build the bypass lines within days.
I see.
So,
Yeah, I remember a hearing on that bypass line.
Yeah.
So, okay, so pag-usapan po natin yung second point that I was raising, no, yung delayed projects, 34 out of 37 ay delayed. Bakit po? And ang sabi po nila, patuloy po tayo, kami na nagbabayad dito sa mga proyekto ng NGCP, and they continue to be delayed. In other words, Congressman Dan Fernandez was saying that you wouldn't want to even, there's no feeling or appetite to rush projects because, hey, by the way, we are paid, the public is paying for this. Is this true?
Are there projects that are delayed? Yes. But is it within completely the control of NGCP? No. Three primary causes of delays would be right-of-way, permitting, and regulatory delay. What's regulatory delay? I was looking at our data. We have more than 100 projects pending with the ERC, and the average waiting time is 3.5 years. For those that have been approved, the average waiting time, average, so there are longer waits and then there are shorter ones. For those that have been approved, I think the average approval time is a little under 2 years. So that's the first one. And technically, we're not supposed to be implementing projects without ERC approval. So I keep mentioning about alignment of timelines because then sometimes, more recently, there was a spate of approvals from the ERC, and I was surprised the other one gave us 60 days to complete. So how can you complete a project in 60 days? The thing is, the reason that's even within the realm of possibilities is because we took a risk. Even without the ERC approval, we decided to pursue the project at our risk because the grid needed it. So,
Pinahunahan nyo na?
Oo, kasi
Right.
pag hindi, mas madaling magpaliwanag. Ba't yung inupisan yan, wala pang approval? Kesa paliwanag, kung ba't nagba-brownout kasi hindi pa tapos
So
yan.
you're saying approval takes 2 years?
It shouldn't. I think they mentioned this in one of the Congress hearings as well. 270 days dapat. So that's under a year.
Yeah.
But another one that's also part of this very complicated regulatory process is what they call the regulatory period reset. That's supposed to be done every 5 years. The last approved regulatory reset ended in 2015.
What is a regulatory reset?
So that's it's a regulatory period, 5 years, where we go to the ERC. We say, okay, for the next 5 years, this is what we're going to build, and this is the amount of money we'll need, and can we charge this much? So they approved the last one, I think, in 2009 for 2010 to 2015. So in 2014, they should have started from 2016 to 2020, and 2019 from 2021 to 2025.
Got it.
But they didn't. So we're already 9 years in
Delayed.
backlog. Yeah, and how does that affect the projects? NGCP now has no certainty on what we can collect. We've been doing an interim revenue scheme, which again is at a risk to us. That's a risk for NGCP. But again, Mr. C, our primary major stockholder, keeps saying na, this is a public service. Just build it. We can get a recovery later because all of this naman is needed.
Okay, but it's public service that's very profitable.
Yes.
Okay.
If efficient.
Yeah. Let's talk about composition because so many questions on that. 60-40 still? Is it
Yes.
60%
Filipino.
local, and 40% foreign?
Yes.
Here's one thing that could be also very controversial. This system operation. Congressman Dan Fernandez, again, because he was my guest yesterday, said that balik na lang yung system
SO.
operation sa gobyerno. Sabi ko, could you kindly explain ano ho ba talaga ito? Well, basically, it's trafficking.
Yes,
Ito
correct.
pong pag-distribute ng kuryente. Sabi niya, kung sino ho ba ang nagmamanman? Siguro yun na lang yung tanong nitong system operation.
Okay, first I'll start. Why is there even a foreign technical partner? Because government required it. The law required it. It's not like, China went in and said, we want to take over, therefore, ganyan. No, they said there was an opportunity. They asked for a foreign technical partner. All the bidders that participated in the first, second, third, fourth bid had a foreign technical partner. And at the time that they did this, they knew that the transmission system already had a national security interest embedded in it. So they determined, and we have to assume that they did, that the 40% cap on foreign ownership would have been enough protection. We have to assume that because we have to assume government did its job, Congress did its job when it gave us the franchise. So is that being maintained? Yes. Are there Chinese executives? No. Are there Chinese board directors? Yes. Because all investors are entitled to proportionate representation at the board. There's a difference between being a chairman and a board director and an executive.
Yun nga po
Iba yun,
kailangan po pag-usapan natin yan. We're running out of time though
Right.
because there was a question posed by Congresswoman Luistro.
Right.
In the law daw, kailangan yung executive at saka is it executive managerial?
Yes.
Should be Filipino.
Yes.
And yet, yung nakikita po naming papel that was being shown was that the board of directors, the chairman of the board was Chinese. It said the name and it said Chinese. Could you
Right.
kindly just explain the structure to us?
The chairman is not an executive and is not a manager. He's not in the line. He represents the stake of the investor, in this case, our foreign technical partner, SGCC. And as chairman, he's only the presiding officer. That's why I was surprised because I know Congresswoman Luistro is a lawyer.
She is.
And that's kind of, it's in the law. I mean, it's not new, and it's not a creation of NGCP in our structure. This is not unusual in corporate structures.
Siguro, pag makita mo lang ho siguro yung ganong table na, I think this is the one we're showing right now? I don't really...
yeah, this is the
this is
GIS.
Monte... No, but this is Monte Oro. This is the...
That's from the same document.
Yeah, but there's
Another
another
page, yeah.
one that we
It
had
says
shown.
chairman. Oo.
Oo, yung chairman na.
Correct.
Kasi siguro, attorney, pag sabihin mo, kahit siguro sa layman na chairman of the board is Chinese and not Filipino, automatically one could think this could be a violation of the
Correct.
franchise agreement.
Yes, it could be. It sounds like, but it isn't.
Sounds like, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I understand where all this fear is coming from. But the thing is, in reality, and there's so many people who ought to know better, a chairman is not even, it's not even better. He doesn't get a bigger vote. He doesn't get 2 votes. He actually will not vote until there's a requirement.
There's a stalemate,
Yes,
no?
a stalemate.
Doon lang papasok ang
because
chairman.
it's a 10-man board, there are 9, unlikely magka-stalemate.
Yeah.
So he just really presides.
All right. We've run out of time, though. I'm sure there's going to be another hearing on this at the House of Representatives. But, Attorney, thank you so much for explaining this to us. We'll continue to monitor the developments here. Thank you to Attorney Cynthia Alabanza.